Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Dabble, where you can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. I am Jim Coventry, and in this show, of course, giving my top reactions to the divisional playoff weekend. Well, we remember back to the wild card weekend. What a great first four games we had there, and then it kind of slowed down those two night games. And then this weekend came about and we were wondering what to expect. And we ended up bookending the weekend with good games with two kind of snoozers in the middle, depending who you liked. It may not have been a snoozer if your team was the one advancing. But again, we are excited to talk all this, but we have to start with the game that just finished. So as I will say, instant reaction number one. Yes, the Rams and the Bears in an overtime thriller. The Rams 20, the Bears 17. This was a wild game. In any planning and preparing and studying I did for this game, I did not see a low-scoring game. Now, there could be a lot of reasons why, and we're going to discuss those reasons. But was it the weather? I tend to think not. But boy, oh boy, where did this go? So first of all, I'm going to first give some credit. I'm talking the Rams side, of course, because they won. I'm going to give credit to Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, as you remember, has been a head coach. He's been a defensive coordinator for many years. But the one thing I know about Dennis Allen is that there were times when he would be facing an elite offense and he would really cook up a game plan. And I want to give him credit here because I'm going to not just say the Rams played a clunker on offense. I want to give Allen some credit because he was sending pressure. He was mixing the pressure up. He had a good feel for when the Rams wanted to run, and this Bears defense was overmatched. If you look at if TJ Edwards, a middle linebacker, was out, the Bears were not good against run. And I know against Green Bay in the second half, they were fine. This was an elite Rams run offense. The offensive line, the three tight end personnel, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, this run attack worked all year long. And they got some plays, but the Bears did really well. So the Rams did not get consistency on the ground. They had moments. They had a few stretches. The passing game, Puka Nacua, you are not going to see a more quiet Puka Nacua game. Devontae Adams, 2 catches. So I'm giving credit to Dennis Allen. Now, what I'll point out here is I thought that Sean McVay, back to the Rams, I didn't think he featured Puka Nacua enough in this game. And I know it was cold, and I know he blocks, and I get that. There were 3 drives, the first 3 drives of the game. We had Terrence Ferguson, 3 targets. Whittington, 2 targets. Mumpfield had a target. And Devontae Adams, no targets. Now, Puka did get a couple targets early, so there was that. But it was not a clear idea to get your superstars, and I know they use everybody, but this is a game where you think they would have been able to use those. Now, we noticed early there was some wind gusts and some deep passes were effective. Those seemed to not be a problem as the game went on. And I also really questioned Sean McVay because remember all the schemed up passes. You watch games where Rams receivers are open all night long. And you want to say the Bears played great defense, but we saw Green Bay when they decided to pass last week. We saw that Bears defense the whole season. It's easy to get open against them. I think Sean McVay did not do a good job here. I think he did not do his usual job of scheming receivers open. Again, don't want to take credit away from the Bears, but I do want to say McVay is supposed to be this offensive mastermind. He has elite players. It didn't look it. Now, Matthew Stafford missed a lot of throws. Definitely going to say that too. Stafford did not look sharp. He had some plays where the ball was a couple feet wide. It was a little bit weird. Didn't look good. He missed easy throws. But as you saw, if you watched the game on the TV copy, first drive went about 80 yards. The next 7 drives for the Rams were somewhere in the 20-ish play range total, and they only had about 80 yards on those 7 drives. And so this was really like a slugfest. And then finally, their ninth drive, when the game was tied at 10, which was from halftime, the Rams go on that 91-yard drive to go ahead. So they finally look good. And now it was cool because on a 4th and 1, if you remember, Puka Nacua, they handed him the ball and he got hit. But man, does that young man make plays, because he got himself over the line for the first down. So anyway, the Rams do go up 17-10. We'll get to the Bears side a little bit later. But here was the thing. The Rams, 3:10 left in the game, they get the ball with a 7-point lead. They have to just drain the clock. They need a first down or two. Now, Kyren Williams did get knocked out of bounds on a run. I don't think he could help it. He had to get the first down. It wasn't one where he wanted to slide because he didn't want to be short. So I'm no shade on Kyren Williams. I don't think he had a choice. But there's 2:07 left in the game, and McVay is playing conservative. He's like, all right, we're just going to run the ball here. And the Bears are just waiting for it. It was just like the Green Bay game of last week when they kept running Josh Jacobs into a brick wall. And that's what the Rams start doing. It's 3rd and 10. And there's 2:07 left. The Bears have a timeout. And McVay has an opportunity here. He does the scared rabbit thing. He runs the ball and punts. It was stupid. It was stupid. If he throws the ball and they don't get it, so what? And I know an interception's in play, but think about it. He knows the Bears. He studied them. The Bears have been the comeback cardiac kids all year. Do you really think you're going to give the Bears the ball roughly their own 35 with 2:07 left in time? And you really think that Caleb Williams is going to come up with something, right? And so I just think it was really scared rabbit football to not just go to end the game. So again, shade on McVay for that. And look, he's a genius, and I don't question, the genius level, but there's a lot of detail stuff that I really believe Sean McVay has missed over the years. And being critical here, he's a million times smarter than I am, and I understand all that, but it is what it is. It was a scared rabbit call. And then, of course, doesn't use Stafford, doesn't use Puka, and the Bears get it back. And I'll get to the Bears in a little bit. But anyway, in overtime, the Rams, again, they go conservative. They don't get the ball to their playmakers. They run the ball and they have to punt, giving the Bears a chance to win this thing. And fortunately for the Rams, fortunately for them, they do get the ball back. The Bears, I'll talk about how the Bears got there in a minute, but then the Rams get it on their own 22, and any score wins now. Any score wins. And now a little smarter. Get the ball to Puka, get the ball to Parkinson. 3 plays are over the 50-yard line. Devontae Adams, heck of a catch. And then the Rams had a 3rd and 6 at the 43. You knew the Bears were going to blitz. They've been doing it all night. They've been very successful. They had gotten to Stafford quite a bit early, but it was there was a timeout because you knew that McVay was going to make the bad call and run, and he took the timeout. And fortunately, because they handed the ball off and Corum got stuffed. So anyway, they come back, and now they're inside the 30, by the way. Takes a deep shot to Parkinson, just misses. Another deep shot to Ferguson, broken up by C.J. Gardner-Johnson, beautiful play. And then they line up for the field goal. And Mevis, UFL kicker, by the way. So you could call him a rookie, and I know it was like an NFL thing, but at least he had a little experience, and he hits the 42-yard winner. So big game for the Rams. Great props to them. They persevered. And it's almost like the NCAA tournament, right? Sometimes you need that one game that you get a little bit lucky. And I think the Rams got lucky here. I think that they got past Stafford's erratic play. I think they got past Sean McVay's mistakes. I think the defense played way better than I ever would have predicted, but I'll talk a little bit about them more as I now flip to the Bears side. Now, when the Bears were starting the game, they like to run the ball. The Rams, as I said in my pregame analysis, the Rams did use a good number of 5-man fronts. That has kind of been the antidote for the Bears running game down the stretch, and the Bears running backs were less than 4 yards a carry. Now, the team rushed for over 4 yards a carry because Caleb had that big run in there. But this Bears run defense hasn't been the juggernaut that it was as late as that Philadelphia game on Black Friday. It was after that team started using those 5-man fronts. So the Rams did have success. The Bears did get some nice chunk runs, real nice, a few of them, but it wasn't a sustaining rushing attack. Caleb Williams threw a couple interceptions. The early one, it was on a 4th down. It really didn't matter. Actually, the Rams should have just dropped it because they cost themselves field position, but they scored. But the Bears early, they did get that touchdown to DJ Moore. And it's so good when they use DJ Moore. And I'm a DJ Moore truther, but I just think that they didn't use him enough all year. Now, the offense was great. They did a lot of great things. But I just really think DJ Moore is an answer, and they really didn't get enough, but he scores a touchdown. Otherwise, the Bears had another chance early to move a drive. 4th and short, they ran the ball. It's Ben Johnson's nature. They come up short, but that's the nature of it, so that kind of works. But other than that, I want to say this about Caleb Williams. When Caleb Williams runs the ball, he has that running ability like Mahomes has. You know how Mahomes just kind of makes people miss and you just can't get him to the ground? Remember when Caleb Williams took all those sacks last year? And now you don't even see him getting dragged down rarely. Teams are sending people after him, and we'll get to more about that later. But so all that said, the Bears are down 17-10, and they have a 1st and goal late. And this before now, I'm back to the Bears side, as I'm saying. And remember when the Rams, they got the ball at 3-10? Well, the Bears had a 1st and goal. And in that 1st and goal, they ran Swift 3 times and nothing worked. So they got to a 4th down. And of course, they were going to go for it. And then Omar Spates jumped the pass to Luther Bird in the middle. So the Bears, at that point, they had their chance. But again, as we said, they got the ball back. And that is when things got fun. It was Caleb Williams. And here's the thing, right? The Rams on a 4th down, 4th and 4, 27 seconds left. The Bears are on the 14-yard line, and the Rams send everybody. And they have got Caleb backpedaling, running for his life. And just like he did against Green Bay, he throws a rainbow that goes right to the receiver. Cole Kmet had a little hand fighting with the defender, got himself freed up, wide open, easy touchdown. Bears tie the game. But what a play by Caleb Williams. Right now, and maybe I'm in the heat of the moment, and I know that Drake May is an MVP candidate. If I'm drafting today, and I don't know what the future holds for Caleb Williams, give me Caleb Williams. He does things that only a few quarterbacks can do. And maybe the consistency will never be there. Maybe it won't. But I'm willing to say the ability to make plays, he still is going to learn a lot playing with Ben Johnson. No shade on Drake May. I would still take him after Caleb Williams. The growth he showed to the real coach was insane. But all that said, that touchdown was great. And the Bears in that overtime, Caleb again converts a 3rd down with his legs, gets a sneak on a 4th down, and then he did throw an interception. And all this greatness, I'm excited about Caleb Williams. And it was a shot he took. It was the Bears were moving the ball. They were inside the 50. They were moving it toward field goal range. I think they got greedy. It was a play where maybe DJ Moore didn't finish the route. That's a possibility. But it was just one of those shots he didn't need to take. The Bears were moving the ball extremely well. They had every opportunity to just get it in the field goal range and let Cairo Santos kick the game winner, or maybe the Bears even score a touchdown. But again, Caleb throws an interception, and then I told you how the Rams had ended, but the Rams had started with their own 25 after that. So again, great season, great game. If you love football, you had to be on the edge of your seat for most of that game. But again, the score, that was way lower, 2017, than I think anybody thought. Maybe somebody did. Maybe somebody way smarter than me thought that. But I thought this game would be very, very heavy scoring. But again, beautiful. Anyway, Dabble's not just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble's easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. All right, we're in instant reaction number 2. I'm kind of putting these games in the order of excitement, and we're going to go the Denver Broncos top the Bills, but they lose Bo Nix. Boy, talk about a weird, bittersweet situation. But it was a wonderful game to watch from a fan standpoint. Sloppy football. The 2 AFC games were extremely sloppy. But the score of that game, Broncos 33, Bills 30 again, overtime. 2 overtime games bookending the weekend. Now, I'll start with the Broncos. It was interesting Because very early in the game, the Broncos lose Pat Bryant, who already had 3 catches, lose him to a concussion. Troy Franklin gets lost to a hamstring injury. They got to go to little Jordan Humphrey and Marvin Mims, who is a good player. But again, you're going in with your game plan expecting 2 of these receivers, and they go down. But Mims and Humphrey both score touchdowns. Bo Nix really played well. I know there when he was under pressure in the second half, when the Bills sent pressure, he was in trouble, and he's not good when he's under pressure, but they couldn't send it every play. And there were some plays when there was pressure that he made it happen. And talk about a nails throw to Marvin Mims for that late touchdown. I know the Bills did send it to overtime after that, but Nix was making nails plays when it was there. The game was in the balance on the line, and it was great. But I tell you what, Bo Nix was not helped by the rushing attack. And I talked about this going in, and it was almost like the Jacksonville game in last week. I said that, yes, Buffalo's not a good run defense, but I did not think there was any scenario where Denver would put up a sustaining rushing attack. Now, you got a 13-yard and a 12-yard carry from R.J. Harvey and McLaughlin. Each had one long run. The other 8 carries, 16 yards. They didn't even bother running a lot because I think they realized that rushing, those running backs are just not going to be able to take advantage of the Bills' defense. It was smart by Sean Payton. Just put the ball in your passing attack hands and take your chance. The Bills are a good pass defense, but it's not one that you can't beat. And we saw that they clearly did beat them very well. So I think it was a well-coached game. Cortland Sutton, as you remember, didn't get a catch pass till the fourth quarter, but he catches 4 for 53 the rest of the way. When they needed him, Cortland Sutton showed up. And that was a thing of beauty as well. But the Bills were, I really thought the Bills should have worked a little more attention on him. But again, he didn't make a difference till late. So maybe it was at that point they kind of thought maybe it wasn't going to be an issue. So I really can't question them too much. Now, so the other side, the Bills, they really are going to wish they could have this one back. Josh Allen, 2 interceptions, 2 lost fumbles. James Cook loses a fumble. When you turn the ball 5 times, you turn it over 5 times in any NFL game, much as a playoff game, you're probably not going to win too many of them. And that 5 turnovers, and yet, the Bills got it to overtime, and the Bills had every chance to win. That is crazy. And I talk about it all the time. Denver has a really good defense. But when an offense can function at a high level, I always say that defense is borderline irrelevant. 5 turnovers, and they scored 30 points. Think about that. Not a knock on Denver. It's just how the NFL works when you have that quarterback. And the running game. This is when I told people about the over and the James Cook prop. And I had people throwing shades saying, well, Denver's a great run defense. They only give up 1 running back all year at 75 yards. I understand. But styles make fights. That's why I don't look at like PFF grades. I understand they're there. I realize what they are. But when I broke this game down, the Bills have a road grading offensive line, big bodies. And the Denver Broncos are more of a light front. They're built more for the pass rush. I said the Bills will be able to get downhill and run. And I said Cook will sail over 100 yards. They get to 117 in this one. But all that said, it was styles make fights. And that's why I think we try to gain an edge in our fantasy and our analysis, because the numbers are nice. Fantasy points against, real nice. But at the end of the day, you've got to understand exactly what the matchups are. And it doesn't always work, but it gives you that 5% edge that you're not getting for people that just look at numbers. Numbers are nice, but everybody's got the numbers, right? So again, you got to find an edge. The only receivers that were really stepping up as expected for the Bills, you knew you weren't going to be able to attack Surtain, and to a degree, Riley Moss too much, but you knew the middle of the field, there was a chance. Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, they combined 138 yards and a touchdown. It was a good game plan. It was how they needed to attack, and they definitely did a nice job of that. As we were saying, though, with the crazy game, the Bills had a chance to win late in regulation. Remember when they were driving the ball, and this is before the Denver touchdown to Marvin Mims. The Bills are driving this ball late. And if they had scored a touchdown, the 6 points would have put them up 7, to which I said, and I don't know if the team would have done it, but I imagine they would. I say you go for 2 there because you're already up by 7. If you score the 2, you're up 9 and it's checkmate because you go up 2 scores. But again, questionable calls. Referees, it is what it is, right? I mean, I'm not a fan of any team. So I know a lot of people get emotional because you're on one side or the other. I'm just handicapping and analyzing this stuff. So I think Brandon Cook's got his arm held. and I thought that was an interference in the end zone. And it wasn't called, but then the Bills end up kicking the field goal, and so the game goes, you know, it ends up later going to overtime, but they kick a field goal there. So all that said, it was one of those things. And then look, I got to talk about it, right? Of course, of the play, we have to talk about it. Um, I don't care who disagrees, and I expect 50% of you disagree and 50% agree. I'm not saying I'm right. The referees are right because they have the whistle, and but I will say I'm old enough to remember the Burt Emanuel catch, no catch, the Kelvin Johnson regular season one, the Des Bryant playoff game. And we have these plays and these games where what is a catch, right? And and again, if you disagree, it's fine. I get both sides. Let's believe I got no skin in the game. I got no emotion here. But my mind, Brandon Cooks caught that ball. And here's why I say that. So Brandon Cooks gets to the ground, he gets to the ground, knee down with the ball. Now they talk about completing the process of the catch. That's off the table. And I watch every snap of every game, and there have been plenty of calls. If the defender rips the ball out, the receiver never had a chance to finish the process of the catch, and the catch stands. And I've seen it all year long when that happens. It's a catch. If he's down and the defender rips it out, the receiver's off the hook. And so that happens. And there we go. And so that was a ball that would have put about the 20-yard line for the Bills. And the Bills probably have an 80-90% chance of winning the game, but it's an interception. And then, of course, the Broncos are great. The Broncos are wonderful. They drove the field. And the unfortunate reality, though, on one of the last plays of the game, Bo Nix ran to the outside, and we didn't find out after the game, after they won. Bo Nix breaks his ankle. And now they got Jared Stidham in the AFC Championship game. Of course, we'll talk about more of that at a later point. But again, what a wonderful game. This is what the playoffs are about. If you were a Bills fan, you're angry beyond angry because of the refs. If you're a Denver fan, you are very proud that your team won, and you're proud that you defended the home field. You're sad that Bo Nix was hurt. But if you're a football fan like I am, you're like, you know what? I don't care how it gets done. It's a fun game to watch. And that's really what I care about. 13 playoff games, and I just hope too many of them aren't blowouts because they're so precious, these standalone games. And this game delivered, again, unless you had skin in the game for a team, and I get that you were going to be angry, and you have the right to be. It's a passionate sport. If you love a team, you got to back them. All right, we are going to go over more of this week's reactions after we take a short break. All right, instant reaction number 3. The New England Patriots top the Texans in a sloppy game. It's Patriots 28, Texans 16. The AFC games are just sloppy. And the reason I said sloppy, Josh Allen, turns the ball over 4 times. Cook fumbles. There's 5 turnovers in that game. Denver wasn't as sloppy. Denver wasn't as sloppy. He couldn't run, which was fine. So, but it was really that the Bills were the ones who were sloppy. But in the Patriots Texas games, both teams were sloppy. CJ Stroud, 4 interceptions. Now I get it. No Nico Collins, lose Dalton Schultz early. And I know Dalton Schultz isn't a world beater, but I knew he'd have success against his defense. They would need him. And when they didn't have him, it was a critical part they really did need. And Drake May throws a pick, fumbles 4 times. Now they only lost 2, but if fate goes the other way, that's 4 lost fumbles. So that's sloppy football. That's between the 2 teams. You're throwing 9. I think Woody Marks fumbled too. So I think you had 10 possible plays that should have been or could have been turnovers. And that's really not the level of football that you want to see. So there's definitely that. So as we look at this, Drake May made the big plays when it mattered. You've got to give the young man credit. 4th down early in the game. The play call is a slant into Demario Douglas, skip the tackle, potential tackler, 28-yard touchdown. The downfield pass for a touchdown to Kayshon Boutte. What a dime. He was covered very well by Derek Stingley on that. Drake May, and then he gets a touchdown to Diggs as well. But it wasn't a pretty game, but Drake May, it was amazing what he did. And our friend Scott Kolb asks us, do we think Drake May's kryptonite could be wet, inclement weather? It is certainly possible, but you've got to give the opponent a lot of credit. The fact that Drake May tossed 3 touchdown passes against that Houston defense, that is a badge of honor. That is something the young man's got to walk away with. And to advance his team against that defense, I think you give him a ton of credit. Yeah, I do think the weather could be a little bit of an issue every quarter. Like Troy Aikman said, when it was like certain types of certain precipitations, he had issues. So yeah, I think there's certain quarterbacks, there's little issues with that. So you just hope they don't run into that too often. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, when May wasn't throwing dimes, yeah, there were mistakes that he got away with through the interception. Like I said, the 4 fumbles, it was a mistake laden game. I really think, though, it was just that dominance of the Texans pass rush. I just think the way they were coming in and just beating the tackles and just getting the hand in right in time to strip sack them. I just think it was that. I don't know that you're holding on to it. And I think May is just not used to seeing that level of pressure. Who is? Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson are just 2 men wrecking crews. So they're just beautiful football players. Always wonderful to watch them. But otherwise, the Patriots, they had a few nice runs early and clock killing. Ramondre got it done late to help salt the game away. But otherwise, Travion Henderson, 12 carries, 25 yards, not really effective. Stevenson, again, with a couple carries early and then the probably 6 or so carries late, he got to 81 yards. He did the job when the team needed. I'm impressed that Stevenson hasn't been putting ball on the carpet. I think that is very impressive because that was a real problem for him. And early in the season it was. And I don't know what he fixed, but he has clearly done very well not putting the ball on the carpet. So again, great props for Ramondre Stevenson, who's had a wonderful last 6 weeks of the season. I said earlier, Houston, like I said, no Nico. They lost Schultz early. Great game plan by the Patriots. Patriots were able to get pressure. Houston doesn't have a running attack. I know that Woody Marks went nuts against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was on and off. When Pittsburgh played their 5-man fronts, they could stop the run. They didn't really do that. And Marks had that big game. Marks loses a fumble here. But Marks was like 14 carries for 17 yards. He was useless. And not his fault. They weren't getting blocking. The Patriots defended it extremely well. They were set. And with Marks not being able to get anything done on the ground, that made it worse for C.J. Stroud because remember, you're going to Xavier Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins, who are fine players, but you're going up against Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. It's not a winning hand, right? And so, yeah, it was kind of rough there. So, yeah, so I definitely think it's a bit problematic for C.J. Stroud. But again, the 4 interceptions was too much. He looked horrible in both playoff games. They got away with it. Now, next week, Denver, it'll be a little worrisome to see having to go with Jarrett Stidham, but their defense definitely gives them a chance. So we'll have to see how that one shakes out. But again, the Denver Broncos and we'll have the New England Patriots. It is going to be a heck of a game. So I'm looking just forward to see how that shakes out. But again, it takes a little luster off, I think, not having Bo Nix there. But again, Nick Foles got a team to a Super Bowl. So, who am I to say this is a death knell? Because I don't know that it is, but I wish Denver had a better rushing attack. I think not having a sustaining running attack, I think that's going to be problematic for Stidham because if Stidham has put the team on his shoulders, and I don't know if Bryant, concussion is going to play, don't know if Troy Franklin hamstring is going to play, but the less weapons they have, it certainly doesn't help. Scott Hobbs also mentioned that Ramondre's carrying the ball a little higher, like the Tiki Barber with Tom Coughlin got on his tail about the fumbles back in the day, and they fixed that up really well. But yeah, it's fundamentals. You get the points of contact and you get the ball up higher and good things tend to happen. So that's definitely true. All right, we're going to go to instant reaction number 4. And this one isn't going to take a lot of time, everybody, guys and gals out there. This is going to be the Seahawks coast into the NFC title game, 31-6. I don't like to do best bets. I always like to say, every bet is kind of equal. On the XM show on Saturday, which will be on channel 87 next Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 4 Eastern on Saturday, 1 to 3 Eastern on Sunday, taking up the kickoff of the playoff games. You'll want to catch those shows. We'll get you pregame shows and betting advice. But I did say this. I said that if it sounded too good to be true, and that usually means it's too good to be true, but the 49ers team total for the betting was 18.5. And I said, and it wasn't just lazy analysis. They scored 17 against Seattle in week 1. They scored 3 in week 18. They didn't have Kittle. Seattle didn't have weaknesses to pick on. We liked San Francisco against Philadelphia because you could pick on the second corner. You could pick on the safeties. They weren't good at defending receiving running backs. I knew that Shanahan could pick on that. There was nothing to pick on against Seattle. And so it was going to be a problem. They had a few good plays, but that was it. And so 41-6, that's it. And I told people, and I never like to rule a team out. And I've been, very happy for the 49ers. Shanahan, I know he won't be a coach of the year, but he certainly, if there's a world where he gets credit for the season he had, he should get credit for it somehow. But all that said, they were never going to have a chance against a rested Seattle team, too, a better Seattle team. And it was just Seattle had every advantage. The only concern going into that game, and this one I said on XM as well, when I heard that Sam Darnold had the oblique injury, I got scared because we have no idea. Oblique injuries could be really serious. It could put somebody out for weeks. And so not knowing if he could throw one pass and be out of the game, I was concerned. So I backed off betting the game itself. I still love the under 18.5 on the 49ers, but I was pretty much out on anything other than Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet over. Now, Charbonnet got hurt early, so if you use DraftKings like I do, that one got forgiven. They don't hold it against you, but that was over. I had McCaffrey over on receptions, but he got the stinger and played sparingly in the second half, so he stalled 5 receptions he had in the first half. Only needed 7 to cash on that. That was injury. But anyway, I think the Seahawks do exactly what they had to do. They ran for almost 200 and change yards in week 18, and I knew they'd have the same advantages here, especially if Darnold was healthy. If Darnold wasn't healthy, the 49ers could have stacked 9 and dared Darnold to beat them. Darnold showed early he can throw the ball, and at that point, the 49ers were done. And Kenneth Walker, 116 yards. That was his most of the season, but 3 touchdowns and scrimmage yards, 145. Kenneth Walker had a wonderful game. This is the defense he could definitely exploit. You hear me talk about it all the time. If there's a team that Walker can get outside against, he is going to rake. And he was able to get outside, and he did rake. But Rashid Shaheed takes the opening kickoff to the house. 49ers, a turnover, and a 4th down miss. 17-0 before we blinked. The game was probably over with the Shaheed kickoff of the opening, the opening return kickoff. Game was probably over then. If it wasn't, it was 3 drives in, it was 17-0, and it was going to be over pretty quickly. Sam Darnold only needed to throw 17 passes, so if you're investing in Seattle players and DFS, they didn't pan out. It wasn't because they weren't good. Leading receivers Cooper Kupp, I think he had 5 for 60, but realistically, they didn't need him. And why push Darnold when he's dealing with an oblique? So they just ran the ball down their throats. No George Kittle. It wouldn't have made a difference. Love Kittle. Wouldn't have made a difference. But we do have a big weekend of football coming up. And it's funny. We talked about the playoffs, and we said, many of us said, open field. Anybody can get in. Well, AFC, we got the 1 and the 2 seed. The NFC, we got the 1 seed, and then the Rams, the Rams just happen to be in the same division as the Seahawks. If the Rams were in any other division, they probably would have been, the 2 seed that way, so all that said. But they had to, the 3 teams, Seahawks, 49ers, and the Rams got to beat up on each other all year. So, but again, the Bears were the 2 seed. They missed out. But, yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. It's going to be open, wide open, and mostly top seeds. So there's that. We will be back on X at Jim Coventry NFL. Give me a follow there. I will post stuff all week. I'll post game previews. I'll post prop bets. I'll give you everything for success there. Remember the XM show on Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 4 Eastern Saturday, 1 to 3 Eastern on Sunday. Everybody, great hanging out with you. We got 3 games left this season. Let's enjoy them. Everybody have a great rest of your day.